the total format of the programs. Yeah, Marshal Mateshwari.
Thank you. Thank you, Vijay, and thank you, Mr. Mahalingam. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be here this evening, and fantastic to see a full house. Excited to hear from the experts. We have a wonderful panel. Before we start the panel discussion, which I will give the context before we start and lay down the rules of the panel discussion, it would be in order to welcome the GOC to give his overview and his address so that the panel discussion can start subsequently immediately after that. Right? Let me welcome General Bra.
Jain, Air Marshal Mateshwar, Dr. Pillai on the dais, Mr. Mahalingam, and online Ambassador Sinha, General Arun, distinguished guests, and all members of the MMA fraternity. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate the MMA fraternity to organizing this event on Op Sindoor, which I think seems to be the first, at least in this region, apart from what we are seeing in the TV. So my compliments to you, sir. So at the outset, sir, let me begin by paying on behalf of the armed forces gratitude to everybody, the whole nation, all the people, for really expressing their emotions toward the armed forces, reposing faith in us, and acknowledging our professional competence, technical skills, and valor. So thank you so much, and thank you very much, sir. So time being short, I will straight away dive into the topic. The last 15 days, maybe starting 7th May, 6th May, there has been a surfeit of deluge of information. So most of you are aware of a lot of things. So this deluge has one big advantage, that the nation as such has become aware of the importance of the armed forces. And they have realized then, with the changing geopolitical dynamics, the whole country is at risk if the armed forces don't perform. This realization only dawns when it happens to you, but there are examples many around. You can see Ukraine, what has happened to it. You can see Syria, Iraq. If you don't have strong armed forces, the nations don't exist. So that is why the emphasis on nation first, security of the nation. So that realization, of course, this media deluge, as I said, has done it. But then on the flip side, what it has done is created so much of information where it has caused, I will say, disfocusing from the real issue of what was the thing. So I'm going to just stand here for a few minutes trying to refocus from the information generally available, because something which is confidential will, in any case, may not be shared, but to just put you on the line that what should be the thought and align with we as a nation, so that we don't think separately as this part of the state or somebody who's in some other part of the state or some other kind of affiliation. So coming to the first Pahalgam, everybody saw that, the Dastardly Act. I mean, I will call it a wimp attack. No man, if he calls himself a man, kills somebody in front of his family. So the most coward people are the ones who do such act. So this was the escalation which Pakistan did. There is more than enough evidence linking, because all the weapons, all the communication, everything. So that, of course, is there, because I'm emphasizing it was initiated by them with a purpose. The purpose had three aims. A lot of people were not happy with Kashmir developing, peace developing, lot of tourists coming, and it returning to normalcy. So you saw the moment this happened, everybody left. So who became the sufferers? The people of Kashmir. The second aim of this attack was to create a divide. That was the manner in which it was created. It was definitely, I don't have to highlight. So, of course, there was the expected reaction, but I think India is a very mature country and there are very, very wise people that they don't fall to such tactics. And the third aim was for the field marshal, or you want to call him a field marshal, to regain. That was the aim of Pakistan Army, to refocus, because internally they were facing a lot of this thing. So whenever they rally against India or Kashmir, so the whole country, whatever their problems are, they come together. So that were the three aims. The only miscalculation was done by, for dignity of the armed forces, I will continue to call him Chief of Army Staff Munir, was that he miscalculated the reaction, because they are very good in narrative building. Balakot would have happened, they would have said, they down one, we down one, and we all question everything. So you say, we are equal, so he will say, Pakistan Army is the one which has saved you from India. But what he miscalculated was what we did. What we did, there's been some videos, you're showing the satellites, you can start showing. A lot of things has been put up by the DGMOs and everything what has been done to Pakistan. We struck 9 terrorist camps. Now, heart of Punjab and Pak Army, Murid ke Bharpur. Striking there is like striking Chennai. That is the impact. If something falls right next to you, you feel something is there. You struck at every major city. That was the precise act on the terrorist camps or locations. The next day, it was told to Pakistan on DGMO level talk that you escalated, we retaliated, we don't want to escalate. So, Pakistan Army survives on this, that they're better than us, because they can fool the people. So now it was visible damage to the public, because what happens in Kashmir, it is. So they fool the people, say anything or whatever they want to say. But then it was right in Lahore. It is Bhavalpur. It is Punjab, Pak Punjab I am talking. So, they couldn't hide it, so they had to retaliate the next. So they thought, the next retaliation, maybe India. We got the better of them on the next night. On the third night and the fourth night, they crumbled. They crumbled badly. They were finished. Now, what is the damage done to them? Some of the satellite pictures are gone. All their air bases were targeted. All of them. It is like targeting Bombay, Chennai, Bangalore. I mean, you name the big city, it was targeted. Because all their air bases obviously are in cities. And if you target air bases, you target the hangars. Even if you have no information, the hangars has aircraft. Now, there is no official confirmation. Some information is coming out. But it is unconfirmed, so can't be quoted if I'm speaking. Maybe $3 to $4 billion worth of equipment or damage has been done. So, the number of aircraft, huge number. Something which, I'll quote TV, which was visible. The C-130, their advanced early warning system, there was a fuel tanker. Some of the aircraft are the West, some of the aircraft are the Chinese. And radars, and so many other things. All this happened, and all this happened when in each of the retaliation, they couldn't hurt possibly even a fly of us. Our air defense stopped each and everything. They carried out a whole narrative, but I am from Punjab. And, you must have heard of Amritsar, Adhampur. I commanded that division, 15th division, which is in Amritsar. The GOC came on TV. I commanded it 7 years back. So, I commanded it during Balakot. During Balakot, we had the deployment. Of course, it was some of the things coming up, but I am fully aware of the scenario. I can imagine we downed some because it never got escalated, but we downed some drones that time. So, we don't publicize, but that time also had it got escalated. So the only damage they could do was, I think one house in Fresh village, lady died, but rest all damage was in LC, across the LC firing, which keeps happening, RT shells, and they can't target army because they don't get, so they hit a good, some civilians, unfortunately, and in the whole of this operation, I think we had just 5, but you have an official record, which has been said, 100 plus terrorists. You have seen the funerals, and they're big names. Some of them may not be known to you, have been killed, and you have the army standing next to them. So what does it say? It is like Hafiz Saeed is the same. Of course, he was not there. He would have been maybe shot down that time also. So, immense damage has been done. It has hurt them sick. It has really hurt them badly. All this narrative, I will try and speak of it later, is just a cover-up. It is a huge cover-up. And possibly what will happen to Pakistan, God only knows. But they made a very, very big mistake by doing all this. And, they were surviving on telling the nation that we are the saviors, despite having lost every war. But that's how you make your public change and become naive, that they don't even realize that what is correct and what is not correct. So therefore, they have been selling this, but now definitely the public also knows. And what does Pakistan, I think everybody knows that, but to put it simply, Pakistan rules the country. They want to rule the country, so they have to have an enemy. So enemy is India. So they can't fight India conventionally. So what they do? These guys from the poor families, and they are radicalized in thought and give them a larger cause, send them across, and also take care of the families, even give them drugs. So, this is a factory. You kill 100 will come. So the target actually is not the terrorist or these people, it is the Pakistan army. So the actual hit has been done on Pakistan army, and Pakistan army comprises 90 or 70% of Pakistan Punjabis. They rule the country. Rest of the country is in quite a bad shape. Rest of the regions are in bad shape. So, this is the thing which has been achieved. I won't emphasize more than that. There has been some talk on, you have seen that this 4-day war got closed so quickly. I think this is a marvelous achievement. I will give you an example. I was DG Armed Corps. The Ukraine war had just started. And in the first month, when the Russia was on its back foot, the delegate, high-level PACOM chief and everybody came on some discussions, and one was part of it. So I just remarked, Mecca, this is the time to exit. You are on the winning side. They had some people who were part of the NSA and other, higher level decision making. They said, no, we will finish Russia this time. Look at their vision and look at their understanding of warfare. Now I want to highlight, tell me, World War II, if you go to the statistics, the number of casualties, airplanes, ships lost by the West is double the number what has been lost by the other side. It was an atom bomb which made them sign that thing, and of course Hitler's that thing, that I will not get into details. After that, has West won any war? Any country of the West, tell me, which war? Afghanistan, you've seen the state, they defeated around 20 countries getting together against a middle level, not even middle level power. So Afghanistan, they have to exit. Vietnam, they have to exit. Ukraine, they have to exit. So which war have they won? China, have they fought any war? 79 they fought, they got lost. After that, they have not fought a war. So what is this narrative? And we have fought every war and won. We have fought insurgency, we have fought JNK. The 62 thing also, where it was a strategic decision for us to withdraw. But wherever we stood, if we were 100, 4,000. You have Joginder Singh PVC, you have Mahavir Chakra, Jaswant Gad. These people stood there. You have Chushul, last man, last round. So, people, this narrative building has to change. So anyway, so this closure was done in a very fine manner. And if we still question that, then definitely we are challenging our strategic wisdom. There are other lessons. DRDO chief, their equipment and everything has been proven, BrahMos, Akash and all. Make in India, we have been trying. This was the result. We have a long way to go because it's a tech war, but definitely our equipment and the equipment which we have, the Chinese and the West equipment has failed. We have won all wars against Pakistan when Pakistan was using Western equipment. So why are we saying Western equipment is good? So, it's again a narrative which has been built on you. So, there are many, many points which needs to be understood. So the closure, when it happened, we have given a decisive action. We don't want, because we don't want to remain in war, because the focus is toward development. We have and there are a lot of people who need to be helped, there are a lot of people who need to be lifted. So that is the focus. Therefore, this action has given us a position of strength, whether you want to so you can do anything. Pakistan has no capability to react because they can only talk now. So now is the other organs of. So in the TV, why I have emphasized this, TV is discussing what I have said is very clear. Please discuss the military ops is done. Discuss something ahead of it. You see, so if people want to confuse, they will confuse you otherwise. So that's why I thought, let me put this thing, military ops is done and dusted. It will put the Pakistan back into, I can't use some other language. They are gone. So where you want to go from here, it is your choice. So that is the other organs of power. So I would have finished here, but maybe a few points. Make in India, of course, is very essential. I have been part of a lot of projects, and I think here also we had 1 or 2 sessions, Zorabar and all this, and one is interacting with all the tech and other things. So this is the thing. And South India, Chennai, and you people are the ones who can really push. And the effort of Indians can really take, because Indian Army, if you rank, they put us some 3rd, 4th. And this 3rd, 4th is not because of what we are, it is only because that we are relying on others. Otherwise, I can tell you, I told you which country has won the war. So, I will talk about UN a little later. So maybe this narrative war you can show. We have ambassadors who are permanent representative and all that. I was in 2-3 UN missions. I was in South Sudan. So I want to give you another narrative which you can show that. Okay, you can show that video. So this video I kind of proudly show. Coming up. I'm okay for time. No, I'm finishing. It's coming or no? No, not this video here. That's 71. It's a surrender video of 71 war. And you can see they are laying down their arms. Yeah, you can see that. Okay, play that. This is the Pakistan Army coming down and laying down their arms. This is the Brigadier General who's removing his ranks. This is the biggest insult. The 71 war was the biggest defeat in the history. No war has created another country in 13 days. And why I proudly show is that 6 gentlemen sitting there is GOC of 9 who happens to be my grandfather. He is Major General Dalbir Singh, GOC 9 Infantry Division. That time. Okay, you can cut this. Show the next one. Okay, in South Sudan, I was the sector commander. We had Chinese with us. So, Chinese ran away. There was a rebel attack and they ran away. I'm just showing you this photograph. I don't know if you can make out. I marked Chinese. The Chinese are scared of Mongols and then they're scared of Indian Army Sikhs because the Opium War, the British Indian Army, which comprised mostly of Sikhs, had really had them. So whenever they make their fun videos, they put a Sikh there. So that is how they relate with things. You see the body language of this Chinese. They're not fighters. They are businessmen. And they're scared of this Mongol guy who's standing next. You can see that the body language. Okay, the next show that news where it shows, because you have to show now evidence that they ran away. I tried to make it viral, but the Chinese are so good that they don't allow any negative news and they create a different news. Can you show that news? Yeah, just if you can scroll it. This is a Guardian news. Put this in Google. UNPC refused to help it. Chinese troops abandoned their post rather than engage in fighting. They ran away. Their ICB was hit. Then one had to take on the Ethiopian troops and some Indian company to stabilize the situation. Okay, so this is what they were done. So, okay, you can close this. So this narrative war, which is there, really has to change. As I have given you some examples, our media also, I think, our media, we are very good in deriding one side with the other. But I think, because I can give this example, maybe you'll understand. They were discussing Munir, but they were showing photographs, all media channels. They were showing Munir as if he has done a victory, standing on a tank, standing and talking and examining some equipment and walking as if. They have not shown Indian generals and chiefs in that manner, our Indian media. You should have shown the satellite imageries of all this and discuss Munir. If they're discussing Munir, that why has he become a field marshal? Why are you showing photos which project him in a good light? Do you find any Western media doing that for India? We don't realize what we do. So, I can carry on. And last is, this is a moment of reckoning for the country. Because, next, when China, Chennai is not in the rear. Chennai is in the front as far as China is concerned. Because, no, I'm not joking. Because even now, they have not done anything. These guys are looking at soft targets, the metros. And China, when you come from the Bay of Bengal, we have strategic installations. So, it requires really a thought to everybody that security and importance of the security. And as far as the armed forces are concerned, all I can say is possibly the realization that a soldier needs, because, it's self-motivation can't carry you. So larger respect, it is not tokenism. Maybe the Agniveers, when they come out, please take them in the industry. When the ESM retires, you can see the army officers, they are the best when they retire. As corporate leaders, as motivational, as technology, as logistics, as administrators. We have example of Group Captain Vijay here. So, that kind of not tokenism by being Facebook warriors or Twitter warriors. Something by which the armed forces, the respect, and sometimes there are turf wars. Because, please also understand we are fighting an army which is ruled by their army, both Pakistan and China. So if the sensitivity is not there, because in a democracy, this is how it happens. But sometimes we get into a turf wars. Armed forces is a Brahmastra. Keep it to one side, respect it. Don't compare it. People start comparing one organization. We compare with the world. You also compare. The corporate should compare with the corporate world. The CAPFs should compare with park rangers. Why are you comparing yourself with us? Any other administrative services should compare with the best in the world. Why are you comparing? We are the protectors. So we are a different creed. So that is all I want to say. Thank you and John.
Thank you, General, for that wonderful overview. We now come to the panel discussion, and it's indeed a great pleasure for me to share the panel with my colleagues, Dr. Sivadanu Pillai, Ambassador Sinha, and of course, General Arun. So what I'll do is, I will just lay out the context. I'll split my session into two parts. In the beginning, 5-6 minutes, and the end, 5-6 minutes. I'll request the other panelists to take about 10 minutes to 12 minutes in their inaugural initial comments. And thereafter, we will, in the second round, we will bring in a question-answer format with last 30 minutes open to the audience for their question and answers. So let me put out the context. Clausewitz famously said, war is an extension of politics. So this particular conflict, I don't call it as war because 2 or 3 issues were perfectly demonstrated by India in this conflict. One, it categorically demonstrated to the world and to Pakistan that terrorism is intolerable, absolutely cannot be tolerated, and therefore we will use force to neutralize any support system that we have for the terrorists. That's one part. Second is, we will cross the border, which we demonstrated during the Balakot strike. And this time, whether we cross the border or not, we are going to strike inside you and wherever you are. And if that escalates, then I will demonstrate my ability to control the escalation. The most beautiful demonstration in this entire conflict was India's complete control of the escalation matrix. And the whole world has understood that part, and that is something we need to understand and appreciate that as well, irrespective of whatever kind of a narrative that you can hear anyway. In any modern warfare, control of and in a nuclear environment, that particularly in that context, control of the escalation or escalation dominance, as we call it, is extremely important. And if I put it after the 10th strike that brought them to their knees to ask for ceasefire, I would now translate that into this being the only and the first case of a conflict situation between 2 nuclear weapon states, where one nuclear weapon state disarmed the other nuclear weapon state. That's the way we need to see it, right? And this is extremely important. And this message has gone right home. Forget about Pakistan, to the rest of the world. And what is important is we live in a world dominated for the last 500 years by Western powers. The West still calls the shots. They write the rules. And they build the narratives as well. And therefore, when we went to action here, there were 2 or 3 things that were singularly different. One, after 71, and to some extent after 99 Kargil War, here was a demonstration of a clear separation of individual duties. The political leadership did their job. The External Affairs Ministry was in complete control and they did their work. And the military was given complete free hand to do what needed to be done as given by the task given by the political leadership. And that's extremely important. So if you go back and visit 1971, one of the most best examples of a war conducted, and it is also a just war that was conducted by India and in the world history. And this was the pattern that evolved over a period of 10 months. Here we took 14 days. And I would say we also learned the lessons from Balakot experience that keep the narrative in your control or keep the escalation in your control. Narrative part, I'll come to it later. But that's extremely important. Second, there was a lot of differences between what happened in Balakot and now in terms of the military, particularly in terms of the weaponry and how that was put together. This was a singular demonstration of the impact of air power and also a fabulous demonstration of the jointmanship and put together by all 3 services. And the reach of the air power, when you have the right weapons and when you put together an air defense system, which is like an impenetrable wall, then you have the complete control in your hands. Second is you were also able to penetrate the adversary's air defense system and penetrate at will. The 10th strike, everything happened in 23 minutes, and you were able to penetrate the air defense system completely. And if you look at the geography of Pakistan, it's far more compact, obviously, compared to India. And from 1970s onwards, they've had a good air defense system that keeps it compact and fairly well, defended and robust. They had a Siemens German system in 1970s. And then they now moved in with the Saab AEW systems. They had also got the Chinese replicas of the Russian air defense systems, which is S-300, etc. And more importantly, we started what's known as the Integrated Air Command Control System for India in 2005. And I was part of that development at that point of time. And we decided to do it completely indigenous way. And it's taken and grown extremely well. What does that do? It integrates all your radars, all your missile systems, all your guns, and all your legacy systems. It's all networked. It's all in terms of networking. It creates a common air defense picture, a common situational picture. And you could actually now deal with air defense from any one geographical position to another end and correlate the weapons in that region without even opening out that radar and giving the inputs from another radar. So this is one of the most important ones. This gets wired up into an exceptionally important intelligence inputs, which comes from ISR, satellite-based inputs, as well as aircraft-based inputs, and then the human comes into the picture. The processing of the ISR is in real time, and that's extremely important. And then, of course, you have your electronic warfare, your deception mechanisms that are part and parcel of the electronic warfare issues, your SIGINT, your ability to now bring in cyber warfare mechanisms, all that are part and parcel of this entire warfare. And therefore, when the first day's narrative has been built up by Pakistan, we didn't worry about it because we focused on the objectives. And remember what the DG Air Ops clearly said. In war, many things can happen, but what is more important is the objectives that have been given to you by the political leadership. Have they been achieved? That was what was achieved on 10th. So what was the narrative on the first day on 7th, after the 7th morning? If you had got taken in by that and trying to counter that narrative at that point of time, you would have been sort of distracted from your core objectives. And I think the Indian military did extremely well. Ignore that part. Yes, they are building a narrative. There are many other reasons why such narratives become acceptable to some people. So ignore that part, get on to the work and launch your weapons, not in response, but as part of your escalation control. So just remember, when the strikes were launched on 7th early morning, it was not an attack that had any surprise at all. The Pakistanis knew very well we are going to react and attack as a response to Pahalgam. And therefore, the military was entirely prepared. As I said, the Pakistani air defense system was quite well integrated. So for the 14-15 days, their complete air defense system would have been active 24/7. That would also have a toll on the people who have been part of that entire process. That's a pressure point, right? So when you now launch your attack, they are ready for it. You think we are fools that we won't expect a J-10 to be operating and that they won't launch a PL-15? We are ready for it as well. But our weapon systems and our strike packages are focused on the target acquisition and destruction of the target. So you have large number of aircraft. And if I quote the Pakistani guy who's now the deputy chief is giving a briefing to all the international journalists on 7th afternoon or 7th evening, there are 125 aircraft in the air on that night. And you have any number of BVR missiles being launched. And this is also, he says, it's the largest BVR engagements in the air warfare history. Could be. but we haven't lost anybody. On the other hand, we've got all the 9 targets neutralized. Now, when Pakistan tries to escalate, we've broken through the air defense, we've defended ourselves, and we controlled the escalation. And when they now went further, we increased the pressure points. When they still wanted to go further using drones and missiles, then we've launched the BrahMos, which Dr. Sivana Pillai, who's the architect of the entire missile, will talk about later. Okay. And in 23 minutes, 11 airfields were immobilized. What does that show? That the entire Pakistan Air Force is the best military force of the 3 services. And that would have been on the ground if we had followed up that attack with a complete launch of a new attack. It would have been decimated. That's the reason they came on their knees for a ceasefire. Right? So this is an important point that we need to understand. But this conflict, having brought it to an end, it also raises 2 or 3 very important issues. We have now a new doctrinal change. When the Prime Minister says that any future attack, a terrorist attack, will be deemed as an act of war, you're also tying your hands by saying, I have to react for an act of war. What will that do? Think about it. Okay? Yes, but that's a good message also to be sending out, because we are now changing from being a diffident, very slow reacting power to a firm and a power that will actually use force without any hesitation. There is a famous, formula that was devised by the CIA in the 1960s by a guy called Ray Klein, who measures national power. And that national power has 2 parts. One is the additive part, which just generally measures the population strength, economic power, military power. And then there is a product power that comes in, which is about strategy and the will to follow the strategy. We've always been seen by the West as somebody who's not strong enough to follow through the strategy, even though they craft the strategy. I think that story has changed on the between the 7th and 10th of May, 2025. The future is going to be different. What will that impact on rest of the region, on rest of the world? And we are living in a world which is unstable, which is also threatening the 500-year domination of the West. We are pushing for a multipolar world, and these ramifications are going to have a different impact on many other areas. In the chaos and complexity theory, particularly in the meteorology areas, one of the scientists says, if a butterfly flaps its wings in South America, you will have an El Nino effect somewhere else, right? So that's the kind of an impact you are likely to have from this output, and how we follow through on this work that we've done on these 3 days subsequently. I will stop here, and let me now invite Ambassador Sinha to give his initial comments over the next 10 minutes. And I would also place, just to give him an indication, three questions. One is, of course, as I pointed out earlier, the Prime Minister indicated a major doctrinal change when he said, from now on, any terrorist attack on India would be seen as an act of war. Does this make for a major change in our foreign policy? What are the ramifications of this change at the regional and international levels? The second one is, what would be the future of the Indus Water Treaty as India has suspended it and Pakistan sees it as an act of war? Similarly, with Pakistan suspending the 1972 Shimla Treaty, does it open the doors for India in its approach to POK recovery, and its position on the LOC? How will China react to these developments? And the third, final one is, India demonstrated the use of force decisively in 1971 and in 1999. But on both occasions, India acted in consonance with international norms or a Cold War superpower supporting us. But this time, the world is different. Could India have pursued Op Sindoor for a longer period with catastrophic consequences for Pakistan, or would there have been the threat of the UN Security Council acting against India? So, all yours. You're muted. Can you unmute yourself? Yeah.
Sorry, thanks, I had muted. Thank you, Air Marshal Matheswaram, General Brar, Dr. Pillai, and General Arun. Thank you for inviting me to this seminar and for requesting me to speak and share my thoughts on this very current and an important topic. You have mentioned, General Matheswaran, Air Marshal Matheswaran, about the new doctrine, so I won't go into that. But it is, as you mentioned, and as everybody says, it is a new doctrine, it is a new normal. And it has evolved in other ramifications as well, apart from the fact that we will regard a terror as an act of war. The other implications of it are that there will be no talks necessarily if there is an act of terror, and whatever reaction we have to have may take place at any time in any form. And the other is that there will be no proposal for joint investigations. There will be no offer of sharing evidence, as was done earlier in the case of Pathankot and the case of Pulwama. The other response that we had earlier in the case of Sharm el-Sheikh, after the Mumbai attack in 2008, the two prime ministers met in Sharm el-Sheikh the following year, and there the joint statement said that dialogue is the only way forward. Now that has been discarded, that there is now a clear policy that we will react and we will choose our reaction the way we want to. And Pakistan will be left in a state of uncertainty about how India will react. And that, I think, is the doctrine that will really unsettle Pakistan. Now, when it comes to the global context, that is extremely interesting. That the global context today is quite different from earlier situations, in that the international order is in a state of flux. In fact, there are people who believe that the old international order has already, for all practical purposes, collapsed. And each of the three major powers is busy with its own major either war or preparation for war. In the case of Russia, it is involved in the Ukraine war. The US is involved neck deep in the Gaza war, Israel-Gaza war. And China is busy with its threats to Taiwan and the East China Sea, South China Sea. So this is a situation in which the countries of the world are not prepared to act in unison in any way against another new country or countries trying to go to war. And this is clear in the reactions that we had to our Operation Sindoor globally. When the terror attack took place on Pahalgam, there was universal condemnation. The Security Council met, and they didn't meet. The members met informally, and they adopted a press statement. And even though Pakistan is a non-permanent member and China is a permanent member, the press statement was extremely strong, and it condemned the attack, and it called for action to be the perpetrators to be identified and prosecuted. So that reaction was a reaction that was felt by all the other members, the 4 permanent members other than China, and the 9 non-permanent members other than Pakistan. So that is a new normal for us in the global situation, in that we are no longer outvoted in the Security Council. If you go back to the 1971 war, the war started on the 3rd of December, and on the 4th of December, the Security Council met and tried to adopt considered a resolution calling upon the countries to cease fire immediately. And that resolution had to be vetoed by the Soviet Union. And then there were 2 other vetoes in a matter of another few days. So that global situation no longer prevails. Now, when India launched the Operation Sindoor, the only countries that can be said to have spoken up in a slightly critical manner were China and Turkey. China said it regretted the Indian military operation, and Turkey said that it would not, it supported Pakistan's call for an investigation or a neutral or impartial investigation. All other countries spoke on expected lines. They called for de-escalation. They expressed concern at the escalation, and they called for restraint. Now, that's the normal reaction that any country would make to any kind of military escalation. So, globally, our position was fairly comfortable. One can't call it strong because the expressions of support that came to us came essentially from Israel, and it came from, to a certain extent, from France. Because France's statement was that it said that we understand India's desire to protect against the scourge of terrorism, which the other countries like UK, etc., did not do. But the US reaction was also extremely important, because the US reaction from the vice president was that it is none of our business, which meant it took a hands-off approach, which was not the situation in the earlier wars that we had fought. And the other, of course, was the more hilarious comment that came from President Trump, who talked about the war going on for 1,000 years or even longer, that we will ignore. So this is the new normal that we have, and the changed global context in which we were operating. Of course, it was helped by the fact, as you mentioned, that on the military front, the situation was always in our control. We led the escalation, and we were always in full control of the military situation, which meant that there was no fear of the situation getting out of control or spilling over into a nuclear confrontation. And in fact, although Pakistan did mention about its nuclear strength, the fact is that neither country did any kind of saber rattling on the nuclear front. So this was, to a certain extent, reassuring for the rest of the world that the military situation, although there was military action taking place, it was not a situation that was out of control and in danger of exploding into a nuclear war or even a full-fledged war, although there were some concerns expressed by countries like Japan. Now, you had asked about I'll come to the Indus Waters Treaty after this. I'll take about the Shimla Agreement that you mentioned, and the fact that Pakistan has said that it will keep the Shimla Agreement in abeyance. Now, the Shimla Agreement, one can argue in different ways. It has kept the peace between our two countries. At the same time, we have to accept that the Shimla Agreement did not really resolve the issues, especially what Pakistan calls the core issue between India and Pakistan, which is the Jammu Kashmir dispute, as Pakistan calls it. But the fact is that in the Shimla Agreement, we agreed, in fact, both sides agreed, that they would not change or seek to change the line of control by force, that it would be changed only by mutual consent. And this was, in effect, an acceptance that the line of control was the de facto border between the two countries. But since it was not called the international border, therefore, it could not be. The final resolution of the Jammu Kashmir issue was left as a kind of an afterthought in the Shimla Agreement. And Pakistan has picked upon this to say that the Jammu Kashmir issue still requires a final resolution for which dialogue must take place. But by keeping the Shimla Agreement in abeyance, although they made essentially only one or two statements on this, and they have not reiterated that point later, because they realized that if they reopen the LOC and they say that they have the right to change it or we have the right to change it, then India, with its military superiority now, would be in a position to then take over militarily and rightfully what it claims. Because although India claims the occupied areas, India has not taken any military action since 1972 to recover that territory, which we rightfully claim as ours. Nor have we raised the matter in an effective way or done anything internationally to put pressure upon Pakistan to vacate that. So whereas Pakistan constantly raises the matter in the UN, our reference to Pakistan occupied Kashmir has essentially been in our general statements in the General Assembly, which is more as a statement of policy than a statement of proposed action by us. Coming now to the Indus Waters Treaty, this may actually well become the most lasting consequence of this 4-day war. Because this war, as we know, was essentially a demonstration of our capability and a kind of a knock on the head for Pakistan. But we realized from the very beginning that these strikes would not put an end to terrorism. But the Indus Waters Treaty, for those who have gone through the treaty and have seen it in operation over the last, 65 years, it is evident that this treaty was extremely unfair to India. It was extremely one-sided, and we gave up far more than we should have, either in terms of our fair share of the waters, and we did that without there being any international law on the sharing of river waters. Now, when you look at the fair share of water, what we got were the three rivers, what is called the eastern rivers, the rivers that flow through Punjab, starting from Himachal, going through Punjab and flowing to Pakistan, the Ravi, Jhelum, Satluj, and Beas. And Pakistan got the three rivers of the north, or what they call the western rivers, the Indus, Jhelum, and the Chenab, with India being allowed a very limited amount of use of these waters. And India being allowed also to use some water for irrigation and some water for non-consumptive use of water for hydroelectric dams. Now, on paper, it seems that there were three rivers for India and three rivers for Pakistan. But the fact is that the waters of the eastern rivers, the rivers in Punjab, carried only 20% of the water. And 80% of the water are in the northern or the western rivers. And that is given almost entirely to Pakistan. Now, this is unfair because if you look at the share of the Indus Basin, and the whole Indus Basin, which spreads across India, Pakistan, Tibet, and Afghanistan, Pakistan has 47% of the Indus Basin. It share the rest almost equally, 7%, 6% is the share. So technically, in terms of the share of the basin, we should have got at least 37, 38% of the water, but we did not. And Pakistan claimed the water essentially on the basis of what is called the concept of prior use. They said, see, if anybody who is familiar with the canal system in pre-partition Punjab knows that most of the canals were in West Punjab, but they drew their water from the eastern rivers, which is Ravi, Satluj, and Beas. So they claimed that since they were using the water much more than India was, therefore they had prior use. But prior use is only one of the disputed principles that is used in international law on the sharing of river waters. The other principle is called the Harmon principle, which was propounded by none other than the Attorney General of the US himself in a dispute with Mexico. And Mr. Harmon said that the country where the river flows, that country has sovereign rights over the water. So you have two completely divergent principles: sovereign rights of the upper riparian and prior use of the lower riparian. And in between these two, there is no agreement. There are some things called the Helsinki rules that were formed by the International Law Association, which is a non-government body. The UN has adopted an act which is called the convention, which is called the Watercourses Convention, but that's been ratified only by 43 countries. China has not ratified it, India has not, Pakistan has not. Bangladesh now plans to ratify it, but that's about all the situation. So you do not have a clear international law on the sharing of waters, and yet India has given up 80% of its water to the lower riparian. So this was, and in this, the rights of the people of Ladakh, Kashmir, and Jammu were completely sacrificed. So it was very unfair in terms of the overall sharing and totally unfair in terms of the rights of the people of Jammu, Kashmir, and Ladakh. So the Indus Waters Treaty should be kept in abeyance. And the other point about Indus Waters Treaty, if I just have a few minutes, is that the Indus Waters Treaty, even though Pakistan got 80% of the water, it got an excellent deal. Pakistan kept objecting to every project that we were trying to build in Jammu and Kashmir. So our dams, or not our dams, our projects on the Jhelum River, on the Chenab, Pakistan kept objecting to them and dragging us to the dispute settlement mechanism. Twice we won in the dispute settlement mechanism, and yet Pakistan kept taking us back. Then we proposed to Pakistan that it's important to revise the treaty, to modify it, to bring it in line with new technology, and to remove some of the anomalies in it. And Pakistan completely rejected out of hand our proposal. Now, this treaty does not have a termination clause, which again is a violation of international law, because the Vienna Convention on the Law of Treaties says that if there is a fundamental change in circumstance, then a treaty can be revoked. But the Indus Waters Treaty does not have an exit clause. So I think it is against prevailing international law, and it is unfair to India. So the fact that we have kept it in abeyance, I hope, is the first step towards abrogating the treaty and telling Pakistan that if they want to have any kind of cooperation, then they must come and negotiate a new treaty with us, which will be fairer and take into account our interests. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. That certainly it's a right step towards crafting a new and a fair Indus Water Treaty. Let me now invite Dr. Sivadhanu Pillai, the architect of BrahMos missile. And the BrahMos missile is the hero of the conflict, if I may put it that way. It was fired in 3 versions: the Air Force version, surface version, the Army version, surface to surface, and the air launch version from the Su-30, the cruise missile from Su-30 as well. Dr. Pillai, all yours.